Welcome back to another edition of the Prepper Recon Podcast. Our mission is to bring you great interviews with preppers from around the world so you can be better informed and better prepared for everything from a hurricane to the end of the world as we know it. I've personally been buying gold and silver from JM Bullion for over 2 years. They offer the best prices over spot that I can find, and I've never had a problem with an order. If you're looking to trade in some of your fiat paper for real money, check out jmbullion.com today. Hey Preppers and Patriots, this is a special edition of the Prepper Recon Podcast. The following is a recording of my guest appearance on I Am Liberty with Jim Walton. Enjoy. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. Cady Armor offers affordable body armor including level 3 trauma plates made of AR-500 steel. They can endure multiple rounds from pistols and rifles up to 7.62 NATO. Their plates are available with rhino linings coatings to reduce SPA. Go to CadyArmor.com, that's C-A-T-I armor.com today.
So Fox News may be constantly promoting a Republican agenda, but that does not mean that it is conservative. This is especially true when it comes to social issues. Some of their anchors are extremely socially liberal. One of the top executives at Fox News is a big Hillary Clinton supporter, and 21st Century Fox/News Corp has given the Clintons more than $3 million since 1992. That's Fox News is not nearly as conservative as you think it is. Another great bullet point from this wonderful article written by Michael Snyder. So the face of the media, the lay of the land, if you will, and what it is we're dealing with, what it is we're up against, and the opportunity that lies ahead is what we're talking about tonight on the show. After all the madness with the shooter and this kind of crazy Ebola coverage and this whole idea that we can't just say that that though the Muslim religion is a relevant one, the fact that our news anchors can't say, listen up, American, within this religion, there is a growing and considerable amount of folks who are looking to do you harm, and they're probably in your community. And no, we don't want you to panic. And no, we don't want you to drag your local 7-Eleven clerk out of the store and beat him to death. But what we would like is for you to be prepared in an instance that something like this happens. I mean, what's so bad about saying that? I don't know. I can't figure it out. But anyway, we're looking for better resources for news. And we have one with us tonight, Mark Goodwin from Prepper Recon, another great podcast. Mark Goodwin, if you're with us, give us a shout. How you doing tonight?
Jim, hey man, what's going on? It's great to be on I Am Liberty.
Excellent, man. Always good to have you back on. Mark had me on his show earlier in the week. We had a great time, and I'm hoping to duplicate that magic here yet again tonight.
And you were just talking about Mike Snyder, and he's great. And I just heard about him. He was actually in an interview on USA Watchdog, which is something I watch, an alternative media site that I watch a couple of times a week, and it's at usawatchdog.com, and then he also has a YouTube channel, and that's Greg Hunter, who used to be a Fox reporter, and he dropped out of Fox because it was so manipulated, and he saw so much, he saw how they were influenced by corporations. And you know, and Fox is pretty much in the same bag with CNN and MSNBC. You know, back in 1975, William Colby, who was the then director of the CIA, admitted in the church hearings that the CIA had control of all the major media networks. And at the time, that was probably NBC, CBS, ABC, and those. But, you know, after admitting the CIA control of the media, he was quickly replaced by someone that they would never have to worry about outing them again, which was Skull and Bones member George H.W. Bush. And then, of course, Kobe died an untimely death in 1996 when he fell out of a small boat near his home in Rockport, Maryland. and drown. Just because you're the head of the most advanced intelligence agency on the face of the earth doesn't mean you'd necessarily have advanced skills like being able to tread water.
Yeah, exactly. That's great. You gotta love that one. A little small accident off the old pontoon boat there, never to be seen or heard from again.
Yeah, that's how Fredo died in The Godfather, I think.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking, Mr. Fredo out there. But yeah, so the interesting thing tonight, what we're kind of latching on to is sort of what I got from this article that I really liked was the fact that yes, the news media is being chipped away at, by podcasting, by other alternative news sources, but it is still very much influential, and I think that it still certainly has an effect on the American public decision making, which is kind of frightening. What do you think about therein with the U.S. news media?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that everybody just buys it hook, line, and sinker for the most part, and I think that's probably maybe the healthiest thing for people like you and me, because if you look at the CIA program to control public opinion, that goes all the way back to 1950. It was called Project Mockingbird, and that's declassified now, and that's public knowledge. You can pull up all the documents on Project Mockingbird now. That's not conspiracy theory. That's mainstream stuff that you can pull up on Wikipedia or probably .gov, CIA.gov. I'm sure you can probably find it on the government websites. And we can probably assume that similar programs still exist. So it's probably the fact that people are still paying attention to their outlets that people like you and me can exist without being shut down. Because I think if people start en masse turning away from Fox, turning away from MSNBC, turning off CNN, and listening to I Am Liberty and listening to PrepperRecon.com, I think that we're going to start having technical issues. You might have sort of a hunting accident. I might choke on a piece of chicken that I didn't chew well enough. There's all kinds of things that could probably happen to our health if people en masse quit paying attention to the mainstream media.
A little polonium sushi, right? Just
Absolutely.
Like the journalist in Russia there.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, from what I've read, there's giant basic media conglomerates that produce about 90% of all the media that Americans consume, and that's why the messaging is so similar on every station, and why there's topics that they'll touch, topics they won't touch, and that's kind of all across the board. I just wonder, how do we keep from? Well, here's a better question, actually, Mark. Where do you get your news from, and what do you look for in a website, in a podcast, in any bit of writing, when you're looking for something that you can really trust and something that you can count on?
Well, what I don't look for is I don't look for perfection, because I don't think that's something that you're gonna likely find too often. You're gonna have to let people be human. You're gonna have to allow people to err and not be overly critical of your outlets. But as the old saying goes, you eat the grapes and you spit out the seeds. But I think there's a lot of good alternative sources out there that are going to at least give you some better options than what you're getting from Fox and MSNBC and CNN. RT tends to get a lot of liberty-loving guests on there. They kind of get a lot of people from the constitutional movement and alternative media movement and Ron Paul movement and those types of things. And that's great. And I really pay a lot of attention to what the guests have to say, but I always keep in the back of my mind that this is a state-run media by Russia. And, and they may be feeding me what I want to hear 99% of the time. So when they get ready to feed me a little bit of propaganda, I'll just eat it hook, line, and sinker, just like I would if I was a Fox News junkie, and they're out there, and the people that they, if it was on Fox, then it's the gospel, because that's the news network that Jesus watches. So whatever they say is as good as gold, and you can take it to the bank. So I think that it's no matter what it is, you can never get your head in that position, whether it's Fox, CNN, the Prepper Recon podcast, RT, InfoWars, or I Am Liberty. Don't take us at our word. Get out there and do your own research. But there is a lot of good stuff out there. And one of the things that I've got is we cut the cord recently, getting off of cable. Had less to do with budgeting and more to do with just the poor customer service from Comtrash, which is our local cable provider here, and so when we got rid of Comcrash, I got the Roku box, which is the little box that you put on top of your TV, and it streams stuff from the internet. And you can put the Plex app on there, and you can watch anything that's on YouTube, which there's great stuff on YouTube. And it also has an app called Nowhere TV. And on the Nowhere TV app, we get all of these different international news channels. We get BBC, we get Al Jazeera, France 24, Sky News, Deutsche Welle, CNN International, which is a much better product than the CNN that's made for the American market. And Press TV, which is pretty good as well. And most of those are, anywhere from Muslim controlled to left leaning, but they do have some good news content if you're able to get in there and do critical thinking and sort of filter out the spin.
Yeah, it's a great. There's so many great resources out there right now, and when I was reading this article, Mark, one of the most alarming things I read, because when you think about our president, you think about Barack Obama, we don't really talk about him a lot on this show, just because I feel like there's people who, do it all day and all night, and it's not one of the things that I like to talk about. But this is one of those things that I read in this article by Michael Steiner that really surprised me, and almost to the point where I'm kind of questioning the legitimacy because of the grassroots sort of avenue that Barack Obama took. What we have is Chuck Todd, and these are direct quotes from the NBC News political director, where he's quoting his feelings or the feelings he got when he was attending a correspondence dinner with Barack Obama, and they wound up on the subject of the rise of internet news and sites like Politico and BuzzFeed and WorldNet Daily, those types of places. Breitbart, I'm sure, was in the topics. And the quote from Chuck Todd is when they rambled onto this topic, the quote was, "He hates it," and that was what he felt from Barack Obama. The fact that he didn't. Well, let me quote him. He said, "It did seem. I thought that his pot shots, joke-wise, and then the serious stuff about the internet, the rise of the internet media and social media and all that stuff, he hates it, okay? He hates this part of the media. He really thinks that the sort of buzzification, this isn't just BuzzFeed or Politico and all that stuff. He thinks that sort of coverage of political media has hurt political discourse. He hates it." And I think he was just trying to make that clear last night. So that was Chuck Todd's, like I said, the political director for NBC News, remarks about, his basic conversation with our president on this sort of alternative media. And what it sounds to me like is that Barack Obama made it pretty clear that he hates the idea of there being anything outside of, the cattle call. What do you think about that, Mark? That's pretty wild.
Absolutely, it's very threatening to them. If you think back to the Revolutionary War times when you had the British Army and they were accustomed to just lining up face to face and shooting at the enemy from basically like a point blank range, and that was the way they did warfare. And then when the colonists, so many of them were were militia members, and so many of them were hunters and had been involved in skirmishes with the Indians and things of that nature. They had a very different ideology about how warfare would be conducted. And that was a huge turning point, I think, for the Revolutionary War is that they just weren't prepared for those tactics. And, red, while maybe deer can't see it, if you're hunting, it's not the best camouflage in a tactical scenario.
Right.
When you're faced with people that have on a raccoon hat that sort of blends in with the forest colors, and it just kind of looks like a little forest creature bobbing around over there. And probably a deerskin jacket that also kind of blends in, and so it really turned warfare on its head. And I think that's what alternative media is doing. I think it's turning news on its head, and we're saying we're not going to do that anymore, and we don't have to do it that way. We don't have to line up face to face and face off with the largest military in the world. And shoot at them at point blank range. We can do this in media. We can sort of take the guerrilla effect, and I think that's what a lot of us are doing. And I think it's important that there are more of us. And I think that there's people out there that are probably thinking about starting their own blog or starting their own podcast, and they're saying there's already so many, and it's not a competition. I Am Liberty and Prepper Recon aren't in competition against each other. We're brothers in arms, and we're standing shoulder to shoulder and elbow to elbow, and we need other people to stand up shoulder to shoulder and elbow to elbow with us and fight against this, because it's going to be a strength in numbers type of campaign where they can't shut us all down. When the time comes, and I think probably the time will come, and I don't know if it'll be Barack Obama or if it's the Democratic or even Republican predecessor that decides to throw the switch and turn us all off and require us to get licenses and people are being told that they're not allowed to film the police with their phones if they're not members of the press, and we're seeing all these types of things that are saying everybody's not the press, and I think everybody is the press. So
sure,
I think that it's a numbers game, and for folks out there that are considering doing it, do it.
I agree with you 100%. What gets me most frightened, Mark, is I read these articles about where was it? I'm drawing a blank on where it was. They had the ballot box that was the governor-elect or whoever went into the ballot box to vote for himself. He was a Republican, and whenever he casted a vote for someone on his side of the ballot, it wound up registering for a Democrat. And I want to say this happened in Florida or Texas. I read it about on Monday, I think. And, of course, it was played off as though there was some kind of a malfunction with the ballot system, and they got it fixed at the time. And then I read another article about illegal aliens voting. Many of them, without the proper identification, being able to vote. And, what you read off the Internet is what you read off the Internet. Take that with a grain of salt, unless it's from a reputable source. And even, a lot of times, Mark, to be honest with you, if I don't see with my own eyes, I kind of question it anyway. It's just the world we live in. But I had a guy, I was on a drive doing business with a guy who's close to me. I work with him every day. And I'm going to leave it at that because he has a felony record and, old things in his past. What I'm getting at is the story that'll really make your blood turn cold. And what this young guy told me was he applied for his rights again. And for those of you who haven't committed crimes, what you need to know is that, you apply for your right to vote after you've committed a felony. You have to do it, and then sometimes you get granted, sometimes you don't, whatever. It depends on the judge, all that sort of stuff. So he applied for his father called him and said, have you applied for your rights? He said, I don't think so. Well, it's coming time to vote, so you better go vote and see if you have your rights back or not. And this guy heads into the polls, gives the ID, yada yada yada. Not only were his rights granted back to him, and he was allowed to vote again, but someone had already voted under his name. And there was a
Wow.
big to-do about that. Yeah, there was a big to-do about that, and sort of like, oh, I can't, this never happens. And they got it straightened out, and he cast his vote. But, had he been like I'm sure many other people out there with felonies decided, this world's not working out for me, or, that sort of mindset, mentality, how many votes are being, pre-allocated, if you will?
That's the great thing about
that
dead
worried me.
people. When somebody steals a dead person's vote, they don't have to worry about them showing up at the poll, and they've already voted.
Yeah, right, exactly.
So it's much safer.
Chicago a few years ago.
Much safer form of voter fraud.
Yeah, the voter fraud is a little nerve-wracking to me because it's one of those things where, there's not many ways to solve that aren't violent. You know what I mean? And that's not what
other countries don't have electronic voting like we have. They go in, they have a paper ballot. You stick your thumb in a little bucket of blue ink that stains your thumb for the next week and a half. So there's no way you can go home and wash it off and come back and vote again. And the people sit there and they count the ballots. And there's people watching the counters, and there's people watching the counters, and that's how it's done. And you just don't get that. You don't have to worry about machines messing up, and which it's not machines messing up, but it provides the perfect alibi.
Yeah, probably something we should consider. But I imagine there's a lot more money in rigging the vote than there is in getting a good, honest vote. That's probably the problem. But that was one of those things that was brought up. Like I said, you read a lot of articles about the news when you hear something like that, from someone. And this is not a political guy. This is not a guy with skin in the game. To be 100% honest with you, this guy was an African American who, in other words, he wasn't trying to sell me a bill of goods. He wasn't a conservative trying to tell me that the system was rigged in favor of Barack Obama. He was telling me a story about his life, as we drove down the highway, and it just knocked me right on my butt to hear that it was, wow, just in plain sight, just like that. Had he not gotten up off that couch, that vote would have been cast. And, no matter how much we modify the media, if the vote is rigged, then we've got big problems, and those are problems I'm not sure how we get around. But that's all part of it. You know what I mean? That's all part of it. The other thing reason I brought up the media today, Mark, is because I see these crazy divisions, and they make money. The conservative and the liberal. You have the Duck Dynasty and the Kardashians. It's like they make so much money off dividing us, it seems like, anymore. What are your thoughts on that sort of divisive piece of the U.S. media these days?
Yeah, it is, and everybody's kind of got their team, and it's very much like sports teams where you like the Dolphins or the Buffalo Bills or the 49ers or whoever it happens to be, and you got your team, and that's who you root for, and right or wrong, you vote for them, and people just don't get in there and they don't do the critical thinking. Bill O'Reilly has got the #1 cable news show in America, yet he had the founder of Oath Keepers on his show discussing the house-to-house gun confiscations after Katrina, and Bill O'Reilly said, that was okay. A weather event is sufficient reason to completely suspend the Second Amendment and throw out the entire Constitution in his ideology. and he thinks that's absolutely crazy talk for anybody to think that they should be able to have a gun to defend themselves in a place where, half of the police force is calling in sick because they're going to stay home and take care of their own family. And people and people that call themselves conservatives are still watching him and still making him the #1 news show in America. And that's the problem, is the people that are still watching him. You know, the people that are just sit there like a zombie on the couch, and just because Bill O'Reilly said it makes it true.
Yeah, it's very dangerous, man. I don't think people understand the filament thin line, you know, that there is between, you know, generating these sort of causes for gun confiscation. That we talk about it on this show a lot. I don't talk a lot about amendments, but I'll always talk about the second, because I know how important it is, and it's more important by the day in this country. It seems like, you know, it almost seems like 5 years ago, 10 years ago, you could have, I mean, you couldn't have made a case for the gun confiscation, but you would have felt a little safer had you not had a gun. Nowadays, it's insane to even think about going through a day without having access to a weapon. I mean, I couldn't even sleep at night. I don't know how people sleep at night without a weapon in their house. I mean, maybe that's paranoia on my end, maybe not, but it's a must-have in this day and age. Before we opened the show, we were talking about what happened in Canada a couple of days ago, and, you know, everybody started railing off in the chat room their different, the guns that they carry, the guns that they have, the reasons why they have them, and it's crystal clear. You know, some people just get it, and they think, what really makes me nervous is the group of people who think that if they take guns out of the equation, then the violence will just evaporate. And that's what's really most frightening to me, is because a lot of those people are running things right now. But the division lines are so clear, Mark. And when I was sitting in a field on last Saturday, right, behind a blind, I went hunting late in the day. It was a really bad idea when I'm wasting a lot of my time. But it was good to get out, you know what I mean, with the bow and all that. And I was sitting there thinking about a hunter. And then I was thinking about his complete and total opposite, right? Or maybe like if he were the alpha, his omega, something along those lines. And so you have the hunter, and then you have a vegan, right? And, you know, these are two characteristics in people that are clearly divided. You know, one sort of sneers at the other hates the other one for killing animals and all that sort of thing. And you look at those two, whatever you want to call them, titles, boxes that they throw people into, these names, you know, whether you take the name because you like it or you're given that name because, you know, we like to quantify people. I started to think about what they really do and what they really believe in. And with like so many other things in life, they just really mesh. Like their belief systems mesh. You know, obviously the vegan's biggest enemy is the factory farm. If you know anybody who's a vegan, they're constantly railing about the factory farm. And I get it. It's terrible, right? So I thought about the hunter for a second. He kills his own meat, which is a direct blow to the factory farming industry. The fact that he doesn't have to go for a year to the supermarket and buy the factory farm raised meat, you know, because he's out there and he's hunting animals. And one of the biggest qualms about this factory farm raised meat is the fact that it's, you know, the animals live in hell. For the short period of time that they're alive, they're living in hell. There's no argument about that, I don't think. And, you know, there's an argument that could be made that life in nature is probably not that great for most animals. You know, it's not like this wonderful place where you hop through the thicket and there's food abound. You know, a lot of deer starve to death, freeze to death. It's tough out there. So the hunters really are doing the animals a service. The other thing is that, you know, people in this same pocket, they tout climate change and global warming and whatever, and on a whole, what they're talking about is the environment. They're talking about their concern for the environment. They want to save the environment. So then I thought of the hunter, and there's no greater conservationists than hunters and fishermen and wildlife supporters, you know, outdoor life supporters. And it even comes down to how they help. You know, you have I don't like to box people and name people, but the sort of ideology around this certain type of person. They want to see America help other nations, you know, whether that means taking more money from me and you and giving it to Africa or whatever. And I saw a picture of a woman from Texas who was holding up the head of a gazelle she had shot. So I did a little more research on these African hunts just to see what it was all about. Maybe one day when I'm a much better hunter, I go hunt a gazelle for the sport of it. And what it turns out is they're taking populations of Africans that are really have no access to any right resources. And they're giving them a steady income stream, these hunters that come to Africa. They come to their land. They pay what it really turns out to be a good amount of money for the folks who own the land. And, they're killing these animals. They're controlling population over there, and they're also, again, providing resources for these people in other nations. And when I looked at those high-level things, it really makes you think about, how different are the American people when you sit down and really look at what we believe in and what we support. Though we're separate in category, because we love to categorize. On a high level, we're really all working towards the same thing, it seems like. If we had, for the most part. That was a hell of a tirade there. But what are your thoughts on that as far as, these categorical divisions that we have based on, how the media categorizes us? And then what we actually do with our life and our time and what our effort goes into.
And I think your gazelle story is a great, and how that helped the people. There's a great way to point out how people are helped through the free market. And it doesn't have to be government robbing me and taking money out of my pocket. And then being the intermediary and deciding how my charity is going to be distributed. Because, without going into detail, I'm a very charitable person. There's several organizations that I donate to, besides what's robbed from me at gunpoint by the government, and it is at gunpoint, because try not paying your taxes and see how long it is before somebody shows up at your door with a gun. So it's at gunpoint. But that's a great example how the free market can help people, even without just basic charity. That's all business and entrepreneurship there that's helping people. Now, about the dichotomy, about the split, yeah, absolutely, it's there, and I think that's why I'm often so hard on the Bill O'Reillys, because I'm thinking, the person that's dyed in the wool that listens to Rachel Maddow day in and day out. I don't think I can reach that person. I just don't think that there's any common ground there, and I don't know how we can even start a conversation. But the Bill O'Reilly person that thinks they're a conservative, thinks they're a Republican, think they're for free market economics, small government, and the Constitution, that's the person I want to reach. That's the person I want to wake up and say, if this is what you think you are and this is what you think you stand for, then you got to get away from the media outlet that you're listening to. Because and for folks that want to look up that interview, it was Stuart Rhodes. He's the president of Oath Keepers, and you can just and that's on YouTube, which is another great outlet for alternative news. They've got fantastic channels on there. Jason A. does great little micro documentaries. Storm Clouds Gathering does also great little micro documentaries on YouTube, and they can just search YouTube for Stuart Rhodes Bill O'Reilly interview, and that'll bring it right up. And then Bill O'Reilly also.
Mark,
go ahed.
Go ahead, do your thing.
And also Bill O'Reilly will automatically, if you question why did 3 buildings fall on 9/11? 2 were hit with airplanes and one was kind of across the street and wasn't even hit by a plane, but yet it pancaked straight down into its own footprint at free fall speed. If you question how did that happen, that's it. You're a kook, according to Bill O'Reilly. So yeah. But we definitely we've got massive division that's very largely played off of by all 3 of the mainstream media outlets.
No doubt about it. So now that we've had a minute to sort of probe the mind of Mark Goodwin, why don't you tell us a little bit about Prepper Recon and what you got going over there at PrepperRecon.com?
Well, we do a show every Monday and Wednesday, which is also syndicated out to Prepper Broadcasting. So hopefully a lot of your folks over there are already getting to check it out. I also I have all my books are available on PrepperRecon.com, which my first book series was called The Economic Collapse Chronicles. It sort of chronicles and that series looked at the very near future of America, and it's very, very focused on American politics and economics, and it kind of assumes the best. It kind of assumes that, everybody in Washington and the Fed and the Treasury and, they were all doing the best they could, but just because of, political gridlock and a lack of common sense and, not being able to tie their shoes, everything's just kind of fell apart by accident. Now, my next book series, which is the first book should be out November 10th, is called The Days of Noah. And book one is called Conspiracy. And that's a fast-paced fiction thriller which examines a lot of the popular conspiracy theories. And it kind of looks at how they might play into biblical prophecy about the end times. Now, it kind of assumes the worst of people, and it kind of assumes that the coming economic collapse is being engineered so that they can sort of clear out the old system and bring in their new one world system. And the final one world government was actually predicted all the way back near 600 BC in the book of Daniel. So this book will follow two main characters. One's Noah Parker, who's just trying to be a good husband and a good father. And the other's a young CIA analyst who learns about the secret agenda from a much older former operator who is now his supervisor because of an injury. So lots of drama and suspense. And, for folks that aren't aware of the prevailing conspiracy theories, it makes sort of a nice introductory course. And everything's presented in the light of fiction, so it isn't a dogmatic diatribe. You can sort of learn about the popular theories and either just enjoy it as fiction or use it as a jumping off point and do your own research afterwards. And that should be out November 10th. And then we've also got a good store over there. We've got some prepper-related products there. If you click the store tab at the top of the page, we've got some great first aid kits. They've got IBD in there, suture kit, quick clot, TK4 tourniquet, MPA airway, EMT shears. And if people will, if somebody from your show, that one of your listeners wants to purchase one of those, if they'll put instructions to seller, if they'll put I Am Liberty, I'll also include a free copy of my Retreat Security and Small Unit Tactics book, which has got a lot of great practical advice on hardening your home in the instance of a collapse.
Very nice, Mark, and we appreciate that. So promo code I Am Liberty.
That's right.
Gives you a free copy. All right, very nice.
And I co-wrote that with David Kobler, which is Southern Prepper 1 on YouTube.
The other unique thing that you have going that I'm not sure many other do, especially in the prepper fiction world, is you put all your books on audio. You want to talk about that a little bit, because that's definitely unique, and for people who are podcasting and working full-time jobs and prepping and doing all the things that my listeners do in a day, it helps to be able to fill that time driving between things with either great entertainment or great knowledge, which I think American Exit Strategy has a little bit of both, in my opinion. But if you could talk about the audio, that would be cool.
Thanks a lot. Yes, and I'm the same way. I'm a podcast junkie. I listen to the Tom Woods Show, anything I can get for free from Voices of Liberty, which is Ron Paul's channel, InfoWars, King World News, Radio Free Readout, Forward Observer Podcast, the Chris Ann Hall Show. I listen to podcast after podcast after podcast. And when I get a book, I like an audio book because I'm just always so busy. I can throw that on and listen to it when I'm going to the gym, doing yard work, commuting, like you said. And the guy that reads it is Kevin Pierce, and he's just got that perfect storyteller voice. And it's a great way to consume prepper fiction. I think prepper fiction is great too because it puts you into the shoes of the main character, and you have to say, what are my preps like? Am I ready to go through what this guy's going through right now? Do I have would I be able to make it? Do I have the skill level that I would need to get through that situation? Do I have are my preps solid enough? Do I have enough food storage? Am I fast enough with my firearm? Do I have the ammo put back that I would need to get through that level of collapse? So I think prepper fiction's great for all that stuff because it makes you analyze your current state of preparedness.
Oh, I agree with you 100%. And being able, like I said, to have those books on audio it makes a big difference because we don't always have time to sit down and read. You know, we just make it. I mean, I'm speaking from personal experience. There's nights when I'm not off maybe a few minutes before my son, thank God, he falls asleep and doesn't wind up going downstairs and setting the house on fire or anything like that. But that's life sometimes. And,
Yeah.
you know, if you can fit some knowledge in there at any time, I mean, it's a very big deal. So, Mark, when you're not podcasting, when you're not that you manage, what do you do in your free time?
Prep. You know,
Nice.
between the podcast and writing and the store that we have on Prep Recon, I'm pretty busy all the time. Now, I try to put in about an hour a day at the gym or an hour and a half at the gym to you know, it helps clear the mind, get out of the chair in the office for a little while, change of scenery. In the winter here in Florida, I do a little gardening. I try to grow lettuce and tomatoes and bell peppers and things like that. And, you know, keep up the solar panels and, keep up the you know, maintenance on all of the stuff around the house, the water catch system, the compost bin, and, the food storage and all of that kind of thing. But you know, I like to get out in nature too. Florida, it's kind of hot here. It's like, but when I can, I like to. My family's all from Kentucky, so I like to get up there and get out in the woods sometimes, just walk around, hike, hunting, whatever.
Very nice. Great turkey population in Tennessee, or in Kentucky rather. I've heard.
Yeah.
So give us the rundown one more time, Mark, and we'll let you go enjoy your Friday night. Where we can get the podcast and the books and what time? I know you said Monday, Wednesday, but I don't remember if we gave us a time or not.
It's all on demand, so you can just go there and you can either click play, you can either stream it off of prepperrecon.com, or you can download it from prepperrecon.com. Of course, you can also get on Prepper Broadcasting Network, and it's on iTunes. Everything's replicated to YouTube. So, you know, if you just want to stream it from your computer, you can do that from YouTube. You also get a nice little jazzy slideshow that's mixed in for the podcast. And, you know, we get good guests on there. We've had James Wesley Rawls was on there last week talking about sort of, you know, I know we talked the other day, we're kind of all Ebola out. But, you know, we always get a lot of newcomers when anytime something comes up that shakes people's false sense of security. And even if it's the wrong thing, if it's something that kind of gives them that idea that, hey, you know what, we need to start getting prepared. We should probably start, you know, buying more than 3 days worth of food to keep in the fridge. And, you know, maybe we should need to think about getting a firearm, and maybe I should not keep all my money in the bank. Anything that makes people start thinking about that, even if it's just watching the Walking Dead, you know, I think we can all pretty much say that the likelihood of a zombie apocalypse is fairly low. But if that's the thing that woke somebody up, and now my next door neighbor watched the Walking Dead, and now he's laying up some beans and rice and getting a firearm and stuff. Hey, you know what? He's not going to be beating down my door the day after the apocalypse wanting all my stuff. So, glory hallelujah.
That's right. That's the way I look at it. Well, Mark, man, thanks so much for coming on. Thanks for having me on. Once you get that book out in November, feel free to shoot me an email. I'll promote it any way you need to, and you're more than welcome to come on the show and talk about it again as well. But thanks so much for coming on tonight, man.
Jim, thanks so much for having me. It's been a blast.
Great, man. I'll talk to you soon.
In American Reset, the final chapter of the Economic Collapse Chronicles, the ultimate contest between liberty and tyranny reaches the apex. The Bear family and their neighbors learn the true value of community as they rely on each other to survive the war and the effects of the financial meltdown. Will the collapse bring an oppressive regime that enslaves the American people, or will the patriots prevail and guide the country back to a place of freedom, peace, and prosperity? Get your copy of American Reset in Kindle, paperback, or audio edition at Amazon.com today.